Hello everyone. Welcome to the another track session of NASCOM DSCI Annual Information Security Summit. This is the 16th edition of AISS brought up by the DSCI. Now we move towards the next track session, which is on handling security incident in 2021, making use of approaches and capabilities to address nuance, complexity, and scale, wherein we will be discussing some sort of best practice, strategies, tools, technologies, and frameworks to handle some sort of security incident in 2021, as we have seen a lot of rise in digitalization. Also, we'll be talking about some of the modern threats and effective response, incident response with the help in accordance to the changing workforce. Now, may I request you to welcome Mr. Subanna Tumallapalli, the independent consultant. Please welcome Mr. Suresh Sankaran, Group Head of Cyber Defense at Axiata. Welcome, Mr. Suresh.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Please welcome Mr. Nagamohan Golagni, the CISO at Bank of India. Then we have Mr. Sridhar Shidu, Senior Vice President and Head of Information Security Service Group at Wells Fargo. Also, the session would be moderated by Mr. Sridhar. Next, please welcome Mr. Aditya Agrawal, Country Manager for India and SAR at RSA. Welcome, Mr. Aditya. Over to you, Mr. Sridhar.
All right. Thank you, Ishan. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, our apologies that we are not that diverse on this panel, but I'm sure there are so many other conversations that are going on which has got the right amount of diversity. Uh, Thank you for joining us this afternoon. The topic today that we are going to cover with my esteemed panel members is around handling security incidents in 2021. Almost 11 months behind us. We are each of the organizations in the midst of a significant vulnerability that is being managed by global security organizations. So it can't be more timely than this. So the whole aspect of our conversation is to how to make use of approaches and capabilities to address the nuances, complexities, and scale of the security incidents basis the work that happened in 2021. So, as you already heard, we have an esteemed panel across different geographies and different industry backgrounds. So let us hope we can make good use of this time to get some insights from this esteemed panel, right? To set some context, if we look back in the last maybe 12 to 18 months, predominantly the nature of security incidents that we saw broad spectrum relate to majority of them relate to three different categories. Of course, there are other categories as well, but these three categories capture the significant portion of the security incidents. One is the ransomware, right? That's one segment of security incidents. Second one is the breaches in the third party ecosystem. And the third one is in the cloud, right? As organizations go into hybrid cloud environment, the incidents that are happening in the cloud are also gathering momentum at a faster pace. So we will be discussing these three. Again, as I said, this doesn't mean that there are no other categories of security incidents that happened in 2021 or even before that. So we'll first start with ransomware, right? If we look at the last 24 months, the pace at which the ransomware has grown, particularly people who are building tool sets to have the ransomware attacks, and then diversifying into people who will develop and people who will deploy. All those things are happening. Ransomware as a service has become significant in the last 12 months. So it becomes a lot more easier in the dark web, and most importantly in the perpetrator's arena, to impact larger number of organizations compared to 2 years ago, right? So from that standpoint, I'm probably going to set with some context on the the pace at which it is happening, and also the amount of ransomware starting moving from maybe $100,000, $150,000 to multi-million dollars in the recent 3 4 months happened, right? So my question probably to the panel member is first to ask Aditya to share some thoughts on from his organization vantage point. What are the trends that he and his team have seen, and what are the probably um, approaches organizations can take both from preventive and subsequently detective and response side of ransomware. So with that, Aditya.
Yeah, thanks, Sridhar, for setting the context. So, ransomware definitely has increased exponentially in the last 24 months. So, from being just a financial crime, it has become an urgent national security risk that is threatening the critical infrastructure, whether it is schools, hospitals, or businesses. What we are seeing that ransomware attacks have become more targeted to focus on specific verticals, whether it is healthcare, BFSI, oil and gas, or pharmaceuticals. The volume of attacks has increased exponentially. As per one of the studies, India is now the sixth country in a list of 140 countries being affected by ransomware. To really understand the impact of ransomware, sharing some more data points. Average data downtime in an organization due to ransomware attacks is 21 days. Average days it takes for a business to fully recover from an attack are 287 days. Amount being paid by victims has increased by more than 150% in 2021 itself. So, to really find a solution to this problem, we need to first understand how it works. So, prior to the deployment of a ransomware, the attacker actually infiltrates the network, sets up backdoors, harvests the credentials, literally moves. The attacker makes a lot of noise to reach its end goal. And it is at these key points where we need to be alert and detect the attack. The dwell time from first signs of malicious activity to the deployment of ransomware can be as low as a few hours. So, quick detection to prevent a successful attack is a must. So, if the attacker has reached the stage where he is ready to distribute the ransomware, then we are already late. So, to solve this problem, we have to take a proactive approach rather than a reactive approach. We need to understand the tools, techniques, and procedures being used by hackers, and any point product solution cannot solve this complex problem. We at RSA recommend that we solve the ransomware problem at three layers. First is detection, second is investigation, and third is response. The key to ransomware early detection is how fast can we detect that somebody has entered into our network. One of the common methods used by hackers is downloading of zip or DDL files from emails. So it is important to have a visibility across all the layers that you have, whether it is an endpoint, it's a network or logs. So visibility across is very, very important. Then comes investigation. If somebody already comes into the network, it is important to isolate an attack. It is important to look deeper and broader throughout our network for any other event that might be related. We need to reconstruct the attack and analyze the payload. Look laterally at other endpoints as well to see if they have already penetrated horizontally. And finally, pinpoint the precise time of attack and last known good state. The third point is respond. Here is where technology comes into play, using at automatic playbooks to quarantine malicious activities and contain the attack, and limit its impact becomes important. So, continuous monitoring is the only way we can detect early, investigate deep, and respond effectively to ransomware kind of attacks. Hope that helps.
Thanks, Aditya. Yeah, absolutely, Aditya. Thanks for the detailed view of things. Yeah, absolutely. In the response area, automated playbooks is becoming a key for better recovery, as you rightly mentioned, up to 280 days for people to come back to the original state after a breach. That is a significant impact. So let me turn it to Suresh. Suresh, your thoughts on the ransomware, across the spectrum, being ready, prepared to, including the response and recovery.
Thanks, Sudhu. Good afternoon, everyone. I think it's a very relevant topic that we are discussing right now. And like you said, we are in the midst of responding to a global event, so it can't be better timing for the want of it. Now, when it comes to ransomware, I mean Aditya has already shared a lot of pertinent data points in terms of the statistics and stuff. So if I take a stab at it from the point of view of an enterprise, I can safely tell you that there are conversations happening at the board level in terms of there's significant curiosity with board members on ransomware, how organizations are ready in terms of responding to ransomware. I mean, the big question of whether to pay or to not pay is a huge question that gets debated in a lot of boards, including my own board, right? So that's a conversation which is happening now. We have been going through this exercise for the past year or so now. If I take my last 3 years experience, both from the consulting and the industry side, and give you a perspective. First thing is a lot of ransomware goes unreported, which is a common phenomena which happens because I don't think, at least in India, I don't think we still have that proper reporting mechanism in terms of whom to report, who will step in. Except for certain, I don't think we are aware of any other agencies to report into, and of course the regulators are out there. Now, few of the takeaways that I have had is that it's important to, I mean, if I probably split it across strategic, tactical, and at an operational layer. At a strategic layer, it's important to keep the board members and the executive leadership sensitized towards what this whole thing is all about, and what the broad level plans are, who needs to do what. Those I mean, even at the board and executive leadership, it's important to have those dry runs, the wargaming to happen, so that you have the muscle memory built into them. Should the event actually occur, who needs to do what? And that's one area which I typically see enterprises kind of getting stuck with, because when the actual event happens, there is a sense of panic or chaos in terms of, okay, now who's going to do what. And especially not with the tech folks. The tech folks kind of do it really well, but when you go up the business leadership ladder and the value chain, that's where it kind of gets a little chaotic, so to speak. So at that level, it's important to define those roles. It's important to play out those scenarios and stuff like that. If I come to a tactical level, definitely you have the protect, detect, respond spectrum out there. So you definitely try and protect as much as you can. One area which I typically see as a gray or a gap, so to speak, is the backup and recovery story. A lot of enterprises struggle there in terms of the backup and recovery. Yes, everybody has got probably the backups covered, but what to back up, right, and what to protect and what to recover. So it's still driven in the context of a compliance based model. If we can switch our mindsets to more of a risk based model and see, okay, what are my crown jewels, what are the key business systems, and then focus the backup, the recovery, the protection, the response around that, it becomes far more easier, or it becomes far more effective, not easier. It becomes far more effective in terms of responding to an event like ransomware. I think the concept of risk-based thinking or risk-based approach needs to set in more, and we need to probably look away from the compliance-based approach. And of course, dry running it, drilling it, getting the right kind of what do you call this detection controls in place. One thing I would definitely like to say, I was speaking to one of the insurance companies, don't want to name them. I was speaking to one of the insurance companies as part of the cyber insurance discussions, and it came as a surprise that a lot of insurance companies are now hesitating to underwrite ransomware claims. So they're not ready to cover ransomware claims anymore, which should tell us the magnitude of the impact this particular attack vector is creating. So I'll take a pause. Sidhu, I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, thanks, Suresh. I think what we think is easy and simple, like backup and recovery, which probably we studied in our first year, probably our first year of our working, it still seems to be far from reality in terms of its effectiveness. So
Yep.
let me switch to the third party side of the world. Now, if you look at the last 2 years, I think the third party realm has significantly changed, particularly the perpetrators trying to look at the large scale third party technology or business solution providers and breaching them, and from them actually breaching the entire ecosystem as becoming a little bit of a trend these days, right? So though we are not directly impacted, some of the organizations, but you never know who is going to be impacted. So from the third party risk management standpoint, let me turn it to the CISO of a bank. I'm sure there is no financial institution in this world which runs on its own without third parties, right? So, Nagmohan, what are your thoughts on how the third party uh, information security incidents landscape changed? And from your experience standpoint, what are the preventive, detective, and response mechanisms global organizations can take to reasonably manage the risk coming from third party landscape?
Well, thank you, Sridhar. And thanks, Aditya and Suresh also to give a wonderful actually insight about the ransomware. It's an education for me too. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And as far as third party, this one is concerned, I believe I would like to make it very simple and straight. Access mechanism, the control at access. Yes, as a bank, Bank of India, and many other banks, peer banks are smaller and bigger banks also. They have too many third party vendors on site, off site to get access to the systems. There, as you rightly said, Mr. Sridhar, the control actually is most important for us as far as cyber security is concerned. There, the access management is the topmost priority, and that's why most of the banks are starting going towards the concept of a zero trust architecture. Some banks have already started, some banks are just envisaging it, some banks are in the midway to reach that. But the most important point of zero trust architecture is just not the name, throwing the name. Actually, it contains the IAM, the identity and access management. It contains the most important part. And more important than that is the micro segmentation of your LAN system. These two are the most important things, and particularly big organizations like these the public sector banks and even other banks also, they have legacy issues as far as their networking is concerned. So they are going for software defined networks solutions to go for the micro segmentation, and then over and above that building this IAM, and on need to know basis only the accesses will be provided. So this is the way we are going ahead as far as the third party this one is concerned. And coming back to the detection and actually see and response thing is concerned, everybody is SOC. Everybody has a big or smaller SOC or either service farm or a captive system. So these SOCs, what exactly happens here is, I would like to, so it is a very common problem, and I think a few people focus on this. And actually, each and every event is being actually going through a number of scenarios, predefined scenarios, and accordingly, it will raise an alert if any one of them met. The alert is generated and actually acted upon. Okay, but that is each event. Actually, for my institution, is about 2 billion events per day. For example, I'm just giving you just side just to make you understand. So this actually these scenarios, the event is passing through all these scenarios, and the alert is generated or not generated is decided. But most importantly, what is being missed in the whole system is the events are being looked at independently, individually. Once they are going through these, they are being stored as a historical log, this one, which is not being touched by most of the institutions now. There, the data analytics play a great role. The particularly correlation between two events, this existing system does not take care. And most of the cases, you will be able to find out by building correlations between the events. Maybe individually it has not generated an alert, but if I correlate some one or more, two or more events, the definitely there will be some threat found. That we are all missing now. We are all going towards that journey started by, but it's a longer journey. It's data analytics and dealing with the big data of historical data. That also gives us a kind of a detection capability. It will increase, either it's third party or otherwise also, and then we can build upon that the responses. And the third one, the SOAR part, the security orchestration and automated response. Most of the banks of our size have, some of the banks have already put it in place. The I say actually deals with the threat detection, the SOAR. It of course it manual intervention also will be there, and it is also coupled with the machine learning over there. The SOAR system, of course, how much you are able to build, configure it powerfully matters a lot. It's only not a purchasing a software or something like that. How powerfully you are able to configure is more important. For example, a SOC, the same solution we have about 4 or 5 banks, same solution, but the major difference is where the noise, the false positives. There are more false positives. That is more dangerous, because the actually true positives may be missed among this noise. So configuration, and actually it's a day-to-day process, and we have to keep reducing the noise. Some banks have got the noise of 40 to 50%, and some banks has achieved the noise, reducing the noise to less than 10%. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens on a day-to-day basis if you try to configure it, understand the alerts, and changing the scenarios. So that is the way we are working in our bank. Thank you.
Thanks, Mohan. I think contextual, business-centric, infrastructure-related correlation and use cases for automation of incident response is absolutely key. And as you rightly mentioned, it is a long-drawn process. It has to be learned through collaboration with the technology solution providers, as well as the inside knowledge of the organization from the infrastructure standpoint as well. Thank you. So let me turn to Mr. Subana. Subana, from a third-party risk management standpoint, both as an earlier practitioner and current as an independent consultant, what are your thoughts on, across the spectrum again, whether it is prevention, identification, detection, and response?
Yeah. Thanks, Sridhar. Uh, Nagmohan, as a CISO, he has covered most of the points. Okay, and I have been in the same banking industry for a long time. So my thoughts are similar, but I have a few points more to add. Okay, first thing, as he said, all the banks are dependent on third parties. There's no doubt about it, and most of the part on the technology side. So what happens is there is a false sense of comfort in the banking sector, thinking that we have given it to a third party and he is going to take care. But the awareness has to increase that yes, we have given to third party, but we have to still monitor the activity and then take care of. Ultimately, it's our customer, the bank's customer. Okay, so that false sense of comfort should go away. So regular monitoring should be implemented properly. See, there is an SLA. They do mean the third party submits a report, but actually it has to be reviewed properly and corrective action taken. That is one point I noticed. Okay. Second thing is again, what happens is awareness on the employees of third parties also. So I mean, Uh, as per the banks and the RBI guidelines also, the banks not only have to increase awareness of their own employees, but also the employees of third parties, either working in the bank's premises or in their own premises, but working for the bank. So that also has to be taken care of. And one more point is threat intelligence. There are a lot number of sources from where we are getting threat intelligence. Now it has become a huge task, and it is becoming an overload. So we need to understand at what stage we have to cut it, or we have to just remove the old ones or archival. Otherwise, it has become a load on the SOC also. So that is one point I noticed.
Thanks, Subhana. It's helpful. One is that to run our own organizations, we depend on third parties to provide services. At the same time, to run our own security organization, we depend on third parties. So that's a very interesting take on the third party standpoint when it comes to risk. Let me turn it to the topic of cloud. Right, last there is a reasonable amount of cloud adoption happening across the world till 2019, thanks to the ever ongoing pandemic last 21 months. I think the pace at which digitalization is happening, whether it is a global organization or an organization of a large size like Nagmohan's in India, or even maybe a mom and pop shop doing probably delivery through Amazons of the world. Everybody is somewhere digitally connected, and most importantly doing transactions on public cloud, right? So now because of that, the kind of the pace at which the cloud adoption happened resulted in the need for the skill sets also at a faster pace, which did not happen, obviously. And we are also seeing rising security incidents on the cloud because of the faster usage of it, right? So, I would let probably three of you, I think Subhana will join us in a minute. Could three of you take, turn and then give your perspectives on what we need to do when we get into an association with a public service provider, how to look at security events on cloud, maybe detection and subsequently, coming back on cloud services if the cloud services were actually impacted. So maybe I can, among the three of you, you can start. Otherwise, I can pick it in whichever way is convenient.
Can I go first?
Sure, thing.
All right.
Yeah.
So I think so you're spot on. The biggest example of the impact of the last 21 months is the fact that there's a huge drop in cash transactions, and there's a significant spike in digital payments. The adoption of digital payments in itself is an example. Now, when we come to the whole story of cloud, I think before even I get into the actual controls or security controls in the cloud, one of the things that kind of happened in the last 21 months especially is that because of this urgency to adopt digitalization and hence cloud being a preferred model to go for, right, a lot of architectural oversight has happened, because typically you build a proper architecture and then you switch into execution mode. That really did not happen.
So if I can probably ask, probably as you are basically talking about the oversight of the other nature, not the actual oversight we generally use, the double entendre, right? So
No, no,
lack
no, no,
of,
no.
yeah, yeah,
The lack of
yeah,
oversight is what I'm saying.
yeah,
So
yeah,
the lack of was kind of implied. Sorry. So
yeah.
the entire segment of architecting security into cloud did not really happen, and everybody started plugging applications and servers and infrastructure components into the cloud, and security now at this juncture is being looked at as a hindsight again. So this is like history repeating itself. This happened in the data center era, and now it's unfortunately happening in the cloud era as well, right? So I think that's fundamentally what has gone wrong, and because of which you have got you. It all started with the open buckets and the open containers where the threat actors were going and fetching data. It started from there, and then you have access control issues. You have got a whole host of other issues. Now, I don't want to nitpick into each and every segment of it, but broadly, I think the enterprises needs to take a quick pause and integrate security properly into the cloud architecture rather than kind of retrofitting it because it's not going to work. So somebody needs to take a holistic view and say, okay, this is how our cloud estate looks like today. How do security fit into this? Now, whether it is prevention, detection, or response, whichever segment. Second point is before you look at off the shelf commercial products, there is a whole host of cloud native controls and cloud native features which are available. Please utilize it. I've typically seen, and that kind of correlates with the lack of skills that you were talking about. So, I mean, a lot of professionals still don't understand what they have subscribed to as a cloud service, or what are the features or controls that are available native to their subscription. So if security teams and the broader technology teams can have a look at that and see, okay, I've got, and to be fairly honest to all the cloud service providers, there is a fairly robust set of native controls that's available, at least with the big ones, right? So if you can leverage on that, then you don't have to again force fit an external solution, whether it is endpoint protection or logging controls or detection, whatever it could be. So I think broadly that needs to happen is my view. I'll take a pause. I'll let the other two chime in with their views as well. Thank you.
Yeah, so if I were probably to summarize, one thing is that earlier we used to say user awareness is key to understand the security events potentially happening within the organization. Now on the cloud side, we are saying it is important for the business and technology to understand and have a better awareness on the cloud side of it. Let me
Correct.
turn to Nagmohan. I'm sure most of the banks in India these days use one form or the other of cloud service providers. So what are your views on events happening, security incidents on the cloud, and how your organization is dealing with that?
I'm a typical banker. I love cloud. I hate public cloud. So to put it very simply, so we have private cloud, and that is fantastic for me as far as my see the elasticity of say the RAM allocation or whatever resource allocation is concerned. That is really fantastic for me. So, but as far as public cloud is concerned, as a banker, my first reaction, as a typical banker, I'm telling you, our first reaction will be to hate it for good reasons, because we are the trustees of public data. We are trustees of your data, okay? Your financial data and your personally identifiable information, whatever is there. So that maximum care we are supposed to take. As far as that is concerned, going to public cloud, putting actually some applications on public cloud is a great challenge for a cyber security person. As a CISO of public sector bank, I'm just telling you. And the most actually the concern things are the visibility. See, we do not have enough capabilities to have visibility of our own internal systems. I'm telling you, it is a fact. See, our capabilities, particularly, we do not have enough. Nothing is enough, I can say. So at any given point of time, I cannot say that I have complete visibility of my systems. No one can say that. And it comes worse once you go to public cloud. Okay, that visibility, lack of visibility is the greatest concern. And number two, collateral damage that may happen. Please don't mind if I'm talking negative about public cloud, but I'm a banker. I'm only just letting you know my concerns as a typical banker. Okay, and unless these are addressed, we would not be able to go there. Let it be addressed properly, we would be able to go there. Because second point, what I was trying to say is visibility, and the second is collateral damage. I was mentioning. See, some attacker tries to attack somebody who is your co-guest, co-hosted, actually hosted by your own this one service provider. He doesn't intend to do any damage to you, but it will happen because you are on the same cloud. And particularly the VMware level controls. We do not have any control over that. Only the service provider has got over that. Yes, big cloud providers like Amazon and all, they say that AWS and all, they say you can get it audited and all, but that is not very easy, and the visibility for the auditor also is limited. Everybody will accept this. And the encryption part, anything you put on cloud, if you are forced to put, that should be encrypted completely. And that encryption has its own overheads. Unless these things are addressed, for a banker to actually go to public cloud will always be a challenge. Still, nowadays so many providers, as my Mr. Suresh said, many providers are coming, service providers are coming. Actually, they are quoting their products only through public cloud. They say if not public cloud, we cannot give our product to you. Then the challenge has started for even for the bankers also. We cannot lie outside for long, but at the same time, we are taking maximum care. Some solutions like CASB, the cloud application service broker. See, CASB, but those are costly solutions. For smaller institutions, it will be difficult for them to have them. Such solutions will help a lot to actually extend your internal controls, security controls to the cloud also. These are my ideas on cloud.
Yeah, on point. I have been a banker for quite a number of years. I understand the sensitivity people attach to particularly PII information. So there are definitely additional consideration. Not just that, even when we talk about encryption, you talked about it. Who brings the key for encryption? Is it the service provider, or you have your own option? You can bring your own key and you manage entire key life cycle, right? That's another one. Different, as you rightly mentioned, different service providers will come up with different options and opportunities. Let me turn it to Aditya as to what he's seeing on the cloud incidents, management standpoint.
I have a lot of concurrence with Nagamohan sir, uh, that we are also a little bit orthodox in terms of adoption of cloud. So while the adoption of cloud and benefits, there is no discussion on that, whether it is flexibility, speed, or scale. I think cloud gives that benefit to the business, but it is making the life of a CISO even tougher. Anyway, it was tougher earlier with a lot of tools being there, but now with being there being a lot of push on cloud, still a lot of applications can't be moved to the cloud. So right now we are running under a hybrid environment. Some of the applications moving to cloud, some on prem. So how do you manage this kind of a environment wherein we have both the kind of applications? This is making a decision making even more tougher for the CIOs and CISOs. And the other point I want to make, which Sridhar said earlier, was on the reporting side. We still don't have those kind of reporting laws in the country, where tomorrow if some incident happens in the cloud, what is the action we can take? End of the day, data could not be our internal thing, it could be our customers' data. So we still have some way to go on the data privacy laws. So till that time, I think it has to be a mix and match between on-prem and cloud, and we will have to live with this kind of a dynamic environment.
I think as I see it, I think we all agree that hybrid cloud is the way. Some organizations can go to completely public cloud native, depending on what they do, and some still will be heavy on private cloud and partly on public cloud. So, thank you for all your inputs. Let me see whether we have a question coming from the audience by any chance. Ishan, can we look at it? Meanwhile, I'll try and summarize our conversation so far. So we all agree amongst the five of us here that the last 2 years have been a significant challenge from an information security domain standpoint, whoever operates in and around that domain. The three major contributing factors are predominantly ransomware, of course, vulnerability management, 0 day, everything keeps happening once in a while, but ransomware impact that's coming more and more prominent. Third party ecosystem getting breached is becoming equally prominent, and cloud adoption leading to lack of understanding, timely understanding, and most importantly, understanding the risks and remediation aspects of security events on cloud. So thank you all for your time and the insights to the audience. Ishan, do we have one question probably we can take? I'm not sure whether we are out of time.
Hi, sir. Yes, sir. We can take one more question and then we can wrap the session.
Yeah.
Thank you
So
so much.
Vibhor, do we have any question from the audience?
Give me quickly take one. No, I think we're good for now. I think we can wrap the session
All
and
right.
then we can address them later if at all there
Sure.
is anything that you have
Thanks.
reached out.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Vibhor. Once again, Aditya, Suresh, Nagmohan, Subhana, thank you for taking time and thank you for all your insights on some critical matters related to security, considering the last 12 months of time period. Thank you once again.
Thank you all.
Thank you all
Thanks, everyone.
co-panelists. Thank you, DSI, DSCI.
Thank
Thank you, sir.
you. Thank you, DSCI.
Bye.